All right, so this week, in this third one, we're going to quickly go through a plan. I'm not going to read through all these, but what we're basically laying out here is what's the process you go through to actually develop develop a plan for what you're going to do strategically with the information technology that we're looking at. We're doing a strategy process here, moving away from strategic planning. Businesses move too fast, the market moves too fast, strategic plans don't move near fast enough. So what we've moved to is really more of a yearly organizational process where we look at the strategy, not redefining mission, all that kind of stuff, but just look and say, what are the customers doing? What's the environment changing? And what do we need to react to? How do we need to react to that? And a lot of it is focusing on the key elements that are going to be the most important that we need to actually invest our money into in order to keep the business ahead of our competitors. It's a process that continues. It's a strategy as learning process. Outside in, always keep in mind what the customer is doing and bringing that in, and focusing really on winning the battle for value creation. So there's a continual sort of learn, focus, execute, and align process we'll be following. And I've got some specific steps in each one of these that we execute to, and we'll go over each one of them. But think of it in terms of this flow, the four main phases that we'll be executing on in order to keep on a yearly basis. Make sure we're understanding where the business environment is going, where the customer is, and what we need to do from an IT perspective to support that. First is learn. Typically I'll set up 3 teams. Conduct situational awareness. What's what our competitors doing? What's the industry doing? What's the broader environment? So a lot of what we talked about in the last presentation we're looking at there. One of these things that you want to look at is, from a customer perspective in our effort, where are we changing? Where do we see sort of a lot of calls? Where do we see a lot of our support going in terms of the different products and services that we have? Understand that, in our own data, what are we seeing? And how's that map to our effort allocation? In terms of what we're spending in terms of the effort versus what we're seeing in terms of the value or in terms of the usage. Then we look at the value map and say, all right, from a profitability perspective, we got a lot of things that are cash users, right? We're creating stuff, products that are going out there. Those are either going to become stars, meaning they're big hits, or they're going to be dogs. They just don't go anywhere. Everything that's going to be everything that we want to do is get those things out of the cash user block and into the stars or into the dogs as quick as possible. If they're dogs, stop them. Quit, move on. If they're stars, great. Invest in them. Eventually, they're going to move into be cash cows. We're not investing in them anymore. They're just giving us revenue. But that cash cows are going to invite competitors. So we constantly have to be spending more on cash users, getting them into stars, coming up with new stuff. Then we look at that and you say, well, there's a value maximization then. So here we've got 2012 as an example. We have a certain product effort mix, in terms of here's the investment for stars, cash users, cash cows. Here's our investment now in the overall. So prototyping has allowed a quicker transition from cash users to stars. That's good. That's what we want to see. Growth in services leads to more mature capability. That's kind of an example of what you're seeing here. Understand how these changes are impacting over time, and then that will shape kind of where we need to make our investments. This is true for the company. It's also true for IT in terms of what we're doing to support the company with the different projects we have. The things we need to understand are, like we said in the prior presentation, businesses fail because their assumptions change and they don't realize it. Are the rules of success changing for us? Is the product mix that the customers liked before they don't like now? What are the threats and opportunities? Those are the things we're trying to get through. So we summarize all those into our key insights. And I have some rules here on how to present all this stuff and create as an analysis. Remember, we've got to always be, when we're doing this, we got to do it in a way that's going to make sense for the business, because we're presenting all this stuff to the executives that are asking the IT department to help be a part of shaping the future and shaping what we need to do as a business. Then we move to focus. Define our strategic focus. What our competitive, what's our competitive advantage going to be, what our market's going to be, and that we want to compete in. All of that stuff with an eye toward, again, maximizing revenue, reducing costs and assets so that we can maximize the overall benefit and revenue for the company. Defining the winning proposition is a key element here. So I've got a chart on the next page that kind of shows you what we do to define the proposition. But basically the proposition is, what are we going to do that's better than our competitors? And that should define what the business does overall. It's going to lead to greater profits, lead to greater value. This is what we're looking at from a winning proposition. We define our customer focus and challenges that are listed there. We look at the proposition and define actually what we're going to do that's going to help us win that competition for value creation, making sure that it's going to create customer value, and we got to list out how that's going to happen, list out how it's going to produce superior profits, and then out of all that, once we know that that's true, then we go down to the key priorities and we say, what are the things that are going to make the biggest difference? And remember, in strategic learning, what we're going to do is focus on those priorities, not on everything. There's no time to do everything that you want to be able to do from a planning perspective. You rely on the functions and the people that are executing on a day-to-day basis to get those things right and to make sure they execute on those. We need to focus on the right things and gear the organization for action. Remember the 80-20 rule. Majority of the inputs have little effect on the desired output. So a good rule of thumb for key priorities, keep it to 3 to 5, no more than 5 that you're going to be focusing on. Then we move into alignment, orchestrate the right set of things, go across the organization, make sure everyone understands what the priorities are, translate those into gaps and accountabilities. This is where leadership comes in, mapping that out for the overall organization. That includes the processes. What are we measuring people by? And are they being rewarded for the things that we want them to be rewarded for? That's a key thing to make sure that if that doesn't flow down from leadership, it doesn't matter how many emails or videos the leaders make, if the reward system isn't set up to actually make sure everyone's day-to-day job maps to the strategy. Sigmoid curve, I got this lesson from the Sigmoid curve in here. That's basically what this curve is telling you, and what we're trying to keep in mind is that the overall success kind of changes over time. You have this investment that kind of pulls you down, it costs a lot, you're focused on innovation, you're spending a lot of money, then you have the success. What happens is a lot of companies get stuck in that where that line is, the top of that peak. They become frozen in their mental model. This worked for us, so this is the way we do things. Become inward-looking and political, risk-averse, focus on incrementalism, right? Big companies get like this. You can't really make a change in a big company. They start to get processes and procedures involved and HR involved and all those big things that try to protect them from problems rather than encouraging growth and new ideas. What we need to do is go here, this break in the middle of the curve. When you start to get to this inflection point, start investing then. It seems counterintuitive because, you're basically investing into the wind. You're starting to get some good cash there. You're starting to have success. The last thing you want to do is start breaking that success. But that's when you need to start investing in that new curve. You're going to lose a little revenue there, right? But at the end of it, what do you come up with on the other side? You're on a new curve going up. As opposed to that, if you try to stay on that existing curve and you hang out to the bottom, you're going to be in a free fall, right? Cash free fall. And that is very difficult to find investment dollars when everyone's scrambling to try to figure out how to keep the business afloat. So you do it early. So now we got to look at the actual plan itself. Again, you're going after the corporate goals and objectives with your information strategy. Now, keep in mind, I'm not talking about all the little tactical plans that have to do with the server department and the info, cyber department, all these other things that you have. We're talking about the big strategic plan. How are we going to win the war? How are we going to get customer involvement, get executive involvement, have a successful business? Tactical is really how to win the next battle and how to get customer involvement and have a successful business here. We need to be thinking in terms of the overall direction and posture of the business and how IT supports that. So that's the purpose of our strategic plan. We have this really expensive asset in IT. How do we maximize it? How do we link it to the business direction? How do we efficiently allocate all these resources in the most effective way to reach those key priorities? And how do we reduce expense? Remember, don't let expense drive what you're doing. That's a bad proposition to have cost reductions driving what you're doing in IT. IT should always be a part of where's the business going, what information needs do they have to get there, how can we be of service? And you let the cost of information drive itself through the strategies of the business, not as some overhead cost within the IT department. There's an upfront analysis. What we do here is say, look, if you're going to do analysis, do the analysis up front. If you try to do it later on, there's this huge cost associated with how much we wind up spending on IT. Actually spend less on IT and all these technologies if you think through where you need to make those investments early on so that you're not repeating yourself, recreating the wheel, all those kinds of things. This is just an org chart that tells you from a strategy perspective. Remember that your IT strategy needs to be linked with sales and marketing and production operations. All those things need to support the business strategy. Don't let ourselves get kind of choked out of that because we're a cost center. What we don't want to do is be a necessary evil in terms of organization. How they manage the information across the business is critical to success. Once we've got this identified, your leadership, you're going to have to go overcome resistance. How do you do that? You short-term wins. You show that it's successful. And it doesn't have to be all the big things, but just show on a day-to-day basis anecdotes and stories and show people how this is winning. And communicate. Use your internal communications to do that too. You'll have people out there who are resistors. Deal directly with them. Set examples. And then think about talent too. Have we developed a talent operating rhythm that helps us with that business? Not just moving the business on a sort of a year-by-year basis, but we have the talent sort of to change on a year-by-year basis as well across the enterprise. Are we setting expectations and holding leaders accountable to develop the capabilities of the team so that as our environment changes, as our customer set changes, our workforce is changing as well and being very dynamic and being able to react to the changes in the business to the point where that becomes part of how we operate and how we treat our jobs. And we look forward to being able to take on new challenges as the business moves into new areas and it has to do new things to remain successful. This is just an example of how we kind of tend to do these things. So here you've got just an example that I pulled from a business on talent milestones throughout the year, leader overviews, high potentials, where do we do development and discussions. These are not yearly sort of talent, yearly management things. You're looking at a continual sort of update. What are we doing from the talent perspective as at the same time that we're looking at what we need to do from an information technology perspective. There's gaps, right? We got to have some gaps to fill. So specific technical success review, where does the organization need depth and talent? Where do we need new skills? These kinds of things. From a people development standpoint, where do we want to grow folks? And sometimes you have specific emerging leaders. We need to make sure we've got a pipeline of folks that can take on some of these big jobs as they come through. Expectations are key. We need to have expectations set for management as well as for your key technical leaders as well. Communication can be a differentiation for that. Identify our top talent, grow the top talent that you have. From a leadership perspective, as we're messaging through the alignment phase and through the execution, you always got to think of strategy as a leadership story. It's why, what, how much, and it needs to answer each individual's needs. So what are we aiming to achieve as an organization, as a company, and as an IT department? Why should everyone care? What's their role in all this? What's going to be expected of them? And then how do we measure success for them? Once we get all that, we again execute this learn, focus, align, execute process. Implement, experiment, launch the strategy, have an action plan to overcome all that resistance that you're going to see, and then continue to drive momentum. Again, maximizing participation, generate some of those short-term wins. They can be small ones that you can just talk about, something to talk about. Remove resistors that are in the way, and just repeat the cycle. Learn, focus, execute, and align as you go forward. What you should see there is business value drivers then, and what's going to enhance the product and service to the customer, creating value for the company. There are going to be operational factors, financial factors, right, sort of medium-term stuff, and sustainability factors. And those are the big ones. What's going to enable the business to continue functioning optimally for a long time? That is part of this whole process being built into place. If we're continually looking at the environment and adjusting to the changes that are coming in, we will be able to continually function optimally for a great deal of time. So focus a lot on those sustainability things. Operational stuff's important. We need to make our cash numbers and such, in the financial factors as well. But sustainability in terms of which includes then the talent management, is key to all this. Overall, you want to have a balanced scorecard. Basically, what are the leading indicators as a business that shows that we are where we need to be in terms of the business. By the time the market's position has eroded in your public measures, you're going to be behind. So what you need are leading indicators. What do we know? Point to problems going ahead. Put those in a balanced scorecard, and I got some examples there. Market share is lagging, but customer relationships, satisfaction, likes, and social media, those are leading, right? Cycle times and defect rates are leading. The actual production throughput is lagging. By the time you see a throughput problem, you would have seen it in cycle times and defect rates earlier. So get the scorecards based on those leading indicators. That's the presentation. That's kind of how we look at strategy and how we can align it to the IT process.